Do you want to take control of your health? Hear the truth about dieting and weight loss? Learn the best strategies for maintaining a healthy lifestyle? This is the Yossi Muller Show.
And welcome to the show. I'm Yossi Muller.
And I'm Dudi Muller.
Dudi is a chef with a background in nutrition.
Yossi is a nutritionist with a background in nutrition.
Every show we do, we take another myth and debunk it.
We crush it. Today's topic is so-called unhealthy foods.
Foods that people think are bad for you, but are actually good for you.
Or at least not bad. Okay, let's start with tuna.
Because people are worried that tuna contains mercury.
Oh no!
Well, guess what? The issue with mercury is not from the can. Mercury is contained in fish because there's mercury in the water, in the sea, and the fish swallow the mercury, very, very little of it, but certain fish have more of it than others, and tuna does have trace amounts of mercury, but for most people, it's not an issue, and it's certainly good to eat healthy food and lose weight and be thin and not necessarily worry about trace amounts of mercury, unless you're eating so much of it and you're sensitive to it. And
well, talk to your doctor if you might be sensitive to it, but most people can eat normal amounts of tuna, and there is nothing wrong. Tuna is a great source of protein, which is good for you.
And if you're so worried about the mercury, you could choose the light tuna over the white tuna. In other words, red over white, chunk light tuna. And you could get canned salmon if you don't mind eating food that tastes horrible. And
yeah.
No, some canned salmon tastes good.
There is nothing wrong with that. Another food that is often thought to be not good, health-wise, is turkey.
Smoked turkey.
Smoked is not good.
Because there are nitrates and smoked. And other cold cuts people think are bad for them.
Again, because of the nitrates and the nitrites. You know the difference between the nitrate and nitrites? Nitrates have one more oxygen atom, which when you eat it, nitrates lose that extra oxygen atom, so they end up being the same thing in your body. And
it becomes a nitrosamine, which is carcinogenic. But America has very high standards. There's a serious limit on how much is allowed in the cold cuts, and it's almost never an issue.
Right, and don't be confused, because carcinogens are not factors as far as weight loss at all. As far as being healthy in general, you can have a conversation with your doctor what the limits are. And he or she should keep in mind that being overweight is definitely not healthy.
And he or she should keep in mind that people who are overweight typically eat a lot more mercury and nitrates and other harmful substances than people who are thin, even though people who are thin do eat tuna and turkey. It's not like the fattening food doesn't also have carcinogens in them.
Included in this is lean pastrami, lean corned beef, roast beef, all of these not unhealthy, not bad for weight loss.
And red meat.
Oh no, you can't have red meat. You have to have only poultry.
There's nothing wrong with red meat. There's something wrong with the fat that's contained in meat and poultry.
So you might want to avoid the excess fat, which is very difficult to fit into a diet anyway.
Because the issue with the red meat is not the meat, it's the white part. It's the saturated fat and cholesterol.
Because that can have an effect on your health.
And guess what? Cholesterol and fat are like twins. They go hand in hand. So if you're eating a lean piece of meat, it's not going to be high in cholesterol because it's not high in saturated fat. Just like animal products, only the animal products that contain saturated fat also contain cholesterol. Like you eat a piece of cheese, it'll have fat and cholesterol. Like whole milk, it'll have fat and cholesterol. You eat red meat that has a lot of white in it, like rib steaks, that will have fat and cholesterol. The same way it works like that in an animal, it works like that in a human. So if you don't have fat in you, because you lost weight, because you stuck to a diet, perhaps by eating tuna and turkey and lean pastrami, corned beef and roast beef and red meat, right?
And some other things we're going to mention.
So you're not likely to have high cholesterol either because saturated fat in a human and cholesterol go hand in hand. So it's not how much cholesterol you eat, it's how much fat you have in your body that is the main factor for how much cholesterol you will have in your body.
Okay. Also, people might have a problem with lox,
which is salmon.
So if you're good with salmon, you're good with lox. Oh no, but it's cured. If it was cured, then there was probably something wrong with it. Come on, people. Lox is fine. It's salmon. If you're able to eat salmon on your diet, if your plan includes salmon, your plan should include lox as well. Seltzer, for some odd reason, people feel that
The bubbles.
the bubbles, the carbonation in there is not good. It goes into my thyroid and I don't even know what people are thinking.
I know that every time I breathe out carbon dioxide. So certainly carbon dioxide is bad for me. So why would I take in carbon dioxide if I'm getting rid of it?
That's a very good point. I might stop drinking seltzer. Oh, come on.
And the flavored seltzers. A lot of people think that the seltzer's flavored. That's even worse.
Right, because it's probably some sort of chemical, or even if it's natural, it's still modified and there's something unhealthy there. It can't have a taste and be healthy.
There's nothing wrong with seltzer. Seltzer is the same thing like water, and flavored seltzer is also the same thing like water. It's good for you
Certain fruits people might think are bad.
because they're very sugary.
Bananas are very high on the glycemic index. Mango, pineapple, grapes.
So the truth is that the serving size is smaller for those fruits, so it's not like a freebie, but it doesn't mean it's off limits, and it doesn't mean it's bad for you.
Assuming you keep it in its natural form and you don't process it into dried fruits and fruit juice. People will think that coffee isn't good. The caffeine, it's unnatural, it's a drug.
And if it's decaf, there's some chemical in there that gets introduced into the coffee when it's decaffeinated, so you can't have coffee. Meanwhile, coffee's very good for you. Coffee lowers blood sugar and cholesterol and triglycerides. And if you have high blood pressure, then too much coffee is bad for you, like 4 cups or more is bad for you. But decaf is still good for you. And the chemical that's introduced in the decaf is just minute, just like mercury in tuna and nitrates in turkey. We're dealing with trace, tiny amounts of something.
And you can't say if you eat a lot of it, it could be toxic.
Anything if
There's
you eat a lot of it.
There's a toxicity level for water even. What's interesting is that every food will have a level that it becomes toxic. There are some foods, there's a famous food that people don't realize actually is toxic on a much quicker level.
It's just a complete glitch in the system, and I hope to change that now. I hope to save some lives. But black licorice, it happens to be you eat a whole container of black licorice, you could seriously get into trouble. You could die.
Right. You know what happens if you eat a lot of black licorice? Your potassium levels can go dangerously low, fatally low even.
And flavored coffee is also okay for you.
As long as it's a flavored coffee that doesn't have added sugar.
Or artificial sweeteners.
Right. Potatoes are bad. White potatoes, it seems processed.
No.
Sweet potatoes are too sweet. What?
We should clarify why potatoes are not often suggested on a diet.
In principle, they're
But
fine.
in principle, it's a very healthy food, very high in potassium, and it is a whole food. It's a starch, and
Practically for most people as a society, and most people are overcarbed, so to speak, it might be better to avoid potatoes, especially if it's a side dish, right? A vegetable side is better anyway. Chicken and broccoli is better than chicken and potatoes. Potatoes are just competing with the best food on the planet. Vegetables. That's why potatoes have a bad rap. They look bad because you're comparing it to other vegetables, and other vegetables are much easier to fit in diet.
but compared to whole grain bread and brown rice and corn, there's
It's the
nothing.
same thing. It is a whole grain starch. Potatoes are actually a great source of potassium, so it might even cure you from licorice toxicity. Just a little joke there, but it does contrast it. It does. Beef jerky.
Right.
It has a whole bunch of problems there. It's
Red
meat.
meat.
It's dehydrated. There's
It's
something
cured, it's smoked.
cured. Oh my gosh.
It must have all types of preservatives and
Right, if it
sodium.
can last so long.
Now, technically speaking, there are variations of beef jerky that aren't so good for you. But beef jerky certainly doesn't have to be bad for you. If it's just dried and added, some soy sauce and garlic, that's for sure good for you.
Instant soup.
Yes, even the noodle soups with all the starch in it, not so bad for you. It's low calorie. When you're taking in all that water, you get pretty full. It even has some soy protein to make the soup base. And certainly if you're going to make my instant soup, which I've mentioned the recipe on other episodes, then you're for sure good. But even the commercial instant soups, the fat-free, low sodium, pretty good for you.
They are not nearly as bad as people might think. This is a great one here. Pcha.
Bless you.
Oh, thank you. That wasn't a sneeze. I was saying pcha, like gala.
Oh,
Pcha, because it has a jello kind of look, people assume that it's full of fat because fat goes like that. No, it doesn't. Actually, fat will fall apart more likely. This pcha, what holds it together is actually protein.
gelatin.
Gelatin, which is protein. It's basically 100% protein, and people think it's bad. There are pchas, they leave a layer of fat in there, and maybe you should watch out for that. But pcha in general is not bad at all. Baby corn. Well, they're not going to think it's horrible because corn itself isn't so bad, but baby corn
is actually much more similar to like a tomato and a pepper and the really, really non-starchy vegetables. Baby corn is very different from adult corns. And even corn on the cob is not so bad for you. It's like a potato. It's a very healthy whole grain.
Whole grains aren't bad. I want to get this out there. Whole grains aren't bad. They typically are higher in calories and therefore harder to
fit into a diet.
Or you can't include too much of it, but there's nothing wrong with it. It is a
healthy food.
Healthy food, yes.
Even if it's popped.
Right. Popcorn. Popcorn actually is even better than regular corn because it's fluffed up with air. I could eat a can of these corn nibs in 20 seconds. The same amount of kernels to make popcorn.
It lasts a while. It's a great
huge.
snack.
It's a ton. Unless you're coating it in oil. Canned vegetables, as if something that's canned is a problem. You think that cooking vegetables on your stove means it's healthier than anything that can last on a shelf. Chicken on a shelf in a box. Any shelf-stable food we assume is not healthy, and that's not necessarily true.
It must have preservatives. No, it doesn't. It's just packaged the same way tuna in a can doesn't have preservatives.
Oh, no, I didn't realize that. Now I'm not going to eat tuna because, you crazy?
Chicken in a box, ready to go, is good for you.
Frozen vegetables, again, we think if it's frozen, it probably lost all the nutrients and it's horrible. Nope.
Freezing retains nutrients, so frozen fruit's also good for you.
Salsa, this is one of my favorite. Pro tip, use salsa instead of ketchup. Salsa, unsweetened salsa tastes great and is wonderful as a condiment. White whole wheat.
Right.
Obviously not healthy because healthy has to look a little bit like mud. By the way, it's interesting to note that foods that look like mud tend to also not be healthy. I mean, think about it. Pudding, mousse, actual mud. Those are not good to eat. Wheat in general. We have this image that wheat is bad. You see spelt. Spelt is another word for diet. No, we think that spelt means it's legit, while wheat means it's something
wrong.
Exactly. Connected to these grains is gluten.
Before you get to gluten, I want to say that a lot of times people will buy a spelt bread or a spelt challah or spelt pretzels, and it's not even whole grain.
Oh, right. Yeah. It's not whole grain spelt. It's just spelt, but spelt got to be healthy.
And no, seriously, they make this mistake all the time. They'll reject the whole grain matzah or whole grain wheat pasta or whole grain pretzels and take the processed spelt and think that they're doing something good for themselves.
Right. And connected to these things, to these grains, is gluten. Gluten is a problem for a very small segment of society. People will either have celiac, people with celiac can't process gluten, and people with gluten allergy. Those are two different things. They also can. But most people, gluten, it's one of the most popular fad diets to avoid gluten. Gluten is not something that is fundamentally bad. It's literally just the protein from wheat. That's what gluten is. Iceberg lettuce. It's not romaine. Romaine is very high in nutrients. It's nutrient dense. Iceberg lettuce.
Empty calories.
Empty calories? Dude, what calories? You eat a truckload. That's like 12 calories.
Iceberg lettuce is very good for you. It's not as good for you as romaine, but it's very good for you.
You have a scale, a range of things. Romaine might be all the way on the top and sugar all the way on the bottom. And iceberg lettuce is very close to the top because there are so many worse foods. A classic one. I don't know where this comes from even. I don't know why this image is even there. Tilapia. People feel, it's a bottom feeder. That's not even actually true. They're actually mid-level feeders, typically. They occasionally will feed lower down when food is hard to come by. But hold it. Back it up. Just a little bit. The whole idea of a bottom feeder being bad is actually a little silly if you think about it. What, because it's dark and muddy, so the fish are unhealthy? Oh no, it's a dark place. Any potential real issues, we even mentioned it by the tuna, in fish, any potential real issues in fish are much more significant with larger carnivorous fish. What happens is toxins that come from the plants and other things in the water are in the smaller fish because they eat the plants, and they bind with proteins and fats in the fish, and when larger fish eat the smaller fish, those toxins bind to them and don't go away. And the more fish they eat, the more toxins they will get, which is exactly why white tuna, albacore tuna, is 3 times as high in mercury as light tuna because it's 3 times the size and eats 3 times as much. And even those toxins may only be problematic, as we mentioned, in large amounts and only for some people. Consult your doctor, obviously. Besides, calling tilapia a bottom feeder, do you only eat wild-caught tilapia? Because for any farm fish, the term bottom feeder makes 0 sense anyway. Why? Because the carefully balanced plant-based food nuggets that the companies make for them to give them exactly the nutrients in order to make them as tasty as they can float. They don't even go to the bottom. They have to go to the top. There's no such thing. There's no bottom feeding when anything is farm-raised, and almost all fish on the market now are farm-raised.
Okay, now a lot of people who heard us talking about tilapia don't even know that some people consider it a bottom feeder, but they do know that they don't like tilapia. So I want to tell you that the Kirkland tilapia tastes much better than other brands, A. And B, it's super convenient because it comes in these little individualized plastics, which you can microwave for 5 minutes and then just take it out of the plastic and add some salsa to it. And it actually tastes pretty good. It doesn't have such a strong fish taste, and it's super convenient.
Salt causes weight gain, right? That's what we're going to think.
Salt is bad for you. It makes you gain weight. So pickles, soy sauce, and salsa, we got to stay away from.
Meanwhile,
Bloats you. Meanwhile, it doesn't make you gain weight.
In fact, salt is incredibly necessary for a healthy diet.
Oh, well,
for
slow
some
down.
people.
Slow down. No. Most people get too much salt.
Oh, okay.
And salt isn't particularly healthy. But you have to look at the context and understand that only about half the population is salt sensitive, and only half the population will have increased blood pressure from consuming too much salt. There are so many people out there who could eat 20 pickles a day and not get an increased blood pressure. But the point is that look at the context, and for most people, salt is certainly better than sugar, and it's not so healthy, but we're mentioning salt in the context of that it doesn't cause weight gain, even though so many people think it does cause weight gain.
Yeah, the image of soy for men being not good. That's also something similar to the toxins in fish. It's something that is
Technically,
exists.
too much soy for women is also a problem. And for men, it is in fact lower, meaning a man shouldn't have as much soy as a woman could have, but a man could still have plenty of soy and still be okay.
Eggs, the same problem as the meat. The cholesterol, oh no.
But meanwhile, if you're not overweight, then it's very unlikely that cholesterol will be able to stick to you. And the whites, so many people say, I can't have the whites of the eggs because it's not a whole food. You have to eat the white with the yellow.
Oh my gosh.
Because now, in principle, they're right. We shouldn't laugh. In principle, they're right. You're supposed to eat whole foods. It just so happens to be that if you eat whole eggs and whole milk and nuts, which are very high calorie, but are whole food, and even potatoes, you know what I mean? Like, if you eat the whole food, it happens to be you're overcarbed and overfatted and you happen to be coming into this conversation, you had too much fat already and too much cholesterol and too much saturated fat. So there's nothing wrong with the whites, okay? Like, in principle, you need the yellows, but you kind of don't.
And don't worry about wasting yellows because you could buy whites in a pourable container. Very easy to use as well.
And that's healthy. Don't think, oh, I don't know, it's in this container. It's not healthy.
Very high in protein. Alcohol is looked at as fundamentally bad. There's nothing wrong with alcohol in moderation. Foods that don't have great marketing, don't have catchwords. They don't say organic. They don't say non-GMO. You think, well, if it was really healthy, you would say these things. No.
Not necessarily.
People think that dips are bad in general. Always, even though there are healthy dips. There are a basic sauteed eggplant with some tomato sauce.
Sonny and Joe's, Golden Taste, these different companies, they make these sauteed eggplant and tomato sauce. It tastes pretty good. It even looks a little oily, and it has a certain sweetness from the tomato sauce and the eggplant, but it's pretty good for you. And in general, choose red dips over white and green dips. They're much better for you.
People will get distracted by other conditions and other issues with regard to food, like the nitrates and the fish toxins, and forget that weight itself is an issue with all these things. Any other issues that a person might have, any other condition, they might want to say it's not the weight, it's genetics, the food coloring, the pollution, it's my posture.
In other words, people will blame their health issues on something other than their weight.
And they won't be looking to lose the weight because the weight isn't the issue, but the weight is an issue with all of these things. With cholesterol, they can take cholesterol medication before changing your food.
Yeah, just eating cholesterol doesn't necessarily translate into body cholesterol. Generally only happens if you're overweight. And sugar doesn't turn into diabetes unless you're overweight.
Blood pressure doesn't make salt a problem.
Blood pressure has a lot more to do with overweight than it has to do with salt. In fact, for some people, it doesn't have anything to do with salt.
The same thing with heartburn, sleep apnea,
kidney disease, liver disease, certain cancers, even certain cancers, which people don't typically associate with being overweight, are very often connected to being overweight. So before you take medicine, and before you blame your health concern on something other than being overweight, and certainly before you avoid eating all these good foods for you that are good for weight loss because perhaps for some people, if you overdo it, it might not be so good for your health. Consider your weight.
Part of the process to deal with these conditions will be some sort of diet change, some rules, what you can eat, what you can't. So we know that food is connected to these issues, to fixing them, yet at the same time, we won't automatically connect the most prominent of food-related conditions, being overweight, to any of these conditions. We think a kidney problem is a kidney problem, you have to deal directly with it. Meanwhile, the weight actually affects that as well.
And because people think that these so-called unhealthy foods are unhealthy, it's a shame because they could go on a diet and they are missing out on all these options, and they very likely need these options in order to create a sustainable diet. And then you have people who go on a diet and they have a method, thankfully they have a method that they could absolutely transform their life for the better, and they get talked out of it. I have a client who's eating edamame beans, and now he's scared to eat edamame beans because someone told him that soy is bad for men. And all the time, I can't eat turkey because of the nitrates. I can't eat cottage cheese because of the sodium. And you have all these people who are on diet, can't eat the eggs because of cholesterol. And they have something that's going to work for them, and they stop because of something that may be an issue for some people if you overdo it, and they're not really overdoing it. And it's a shame. If you have a car with a broken engine and you're worried about the flat tire, that's a problem.
Yeah, you're missing the point.
The broken engine is the being overweight. The flat tire is the type of food you eat. If it's super healthy or only moderately healthy, most of these foods that we're talking about are either totally okay, like the iceberg lettuce, or it's maybe inconsequentially not as healthy as perhaps some other foods. But consider the fact that if you weren't on a diet, you would probably be eating other foods that have harmful substance. It's not like potato chips don't have acrylamide in it, which is a terrible carcinogen. Get your act together. Is basically what we're trying to say. Let's get checked in with reality over here. And it reminds me of a joke where someone's going into the desert and they take with them a survival kit. You know, you have like a mirror to
light a fire,
and then you have a flashlight, and you have, special type of clothing and insect repellent, and also a matzo ball recipe.
But matzo ball recipe.
And the guy's like, what? What am I going to do with this matzo ball recipe? So he's told, well, if you're stuck in the desert and there's no one around, just start making these matzo balls, and immediately 6 Jewish women will show up and tell you that you're doing it wrong and how you're supposed to do it.
Because everyone has an opinion. If everyone has an opinion and you're going to listen to them, then you will not be able to follow any sort of sensible plan, any sort of sensible diet. You're not going to succeed if everyone who tells you anything you're going to listen to. Oh, cholesterol.
So eat what you're supposed to eat on your diet, and don't quickly drop something on your diet just because it may have in trace amounts some substance that if you eat a crazy amount of it and you're sensitive to it, you might develop some issue which isn't nearly as problematic as being overweight.
Right. People don't realize the huge problem being overweight can be to someone health-wise, because being overweight affects all of these conditions. It affects all the whole body, how it functions.
So if you're on a diet, stick to your diet.
That itself is a good thing.
And that takes us to the end of this episode.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you join us next time.